very kind of sly about it. We'll talk a little bit about some germicidal hand cream stuff, just to let everybody know what's going on with that. I'm going to talk a little bit about Pete Blackburn from CBS Sports. I share his newsletter. He usually is on air, but because of the thing, he's CBS Sports HQ is where he comes from. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the NBA just announced. They're going to be in Disneyland. NHL is going to be doing their thing. They all seem to be intersecting both when they start and when they finish around Thanksgiving. And then they're going to start the 2021 season in December. It's just crazy. Yeah. I'm already getting a whole bunch of people are getting into Facebook already. We're Facebook Live broadcast. Okay. So I'm going to say hello to Carrie and Catherine, Dr. Scully, good to have you with me. And Lisa, you're becoming one of my consistent fans there, girl. Now I'm saying that we're not live on the air yet, but we will be in just a second. So here we go. Well, good morning, everybody. This is Lowell Whiteman, your host of 360 Performance on a Friday, every Friday at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. We've got some great stuff happening. Well, we have great stuff happening here in the studio. As Henry would say, this is my safe zone, my cave. I can come here and get away from the world and be joined with wonderful colleagues that are coming to us through Zoom today. As you can see over my shoulder, for those of you who are looking, I'll introduce Vin more formally in just a second. But as we do every Monday, we start off with some great insights and highlights from, wait a minute, no, there isn't any sports highlights or insights. It's just Pete Blackburn and his imagination. And well, we've got a couple of different things happening with what's going on in the world of sports, but it's not exactly what you would expect, right? It's kind of sort of off the cuff, but not really. I'm scratching my head verbally with you because I'm not sure what's really going to go on with the NBA and the NHL and Major League Baseball. But NBA and the NHL, they've formally come out and made decisions that they're going to start. They're going to get things going. And so now we're going to have for the NBA all of these wonderful little tongue-in-cheek quips about Disney World. Things like a ball world after all. Not a small, you see what we did there? A ball world after all. Okay, so I'm going to end with that. I'm not going to go any further because it could get really nasty and ugly. But the commissioner, it was approved 29-1 by the NBA. The Players Association still has to ratify. They're going to probably ratify today with their vote, getting it together with the tech. But basically it does this. Players that are not in the country are going to have to be here by next Monday. I'm sorry, not next Monday, the 15th. I'll just say it that way, June 15th. And then all players will report to their home market on the 21st. They'll all get tested on the 22nd in their home market at their home stadiums for COVID-19. And then after that, anybody who passes that test, June 30th, training camp begins. And then they show up on July 7th in Orlando for their season. Other notes I will make later on, but like in October, is possibly the start of the playoffs on the 21st of October. August 25th, backing up from there, is the draft lottery. It's crazy. Here's what's even crazier. In November, they plan to end one season and begin the 2021 season. And the 2021 season will open in December. The NHL is not too far behind that. I'll let you guys figure out who's going to play off what. There's just some really exotic ways they're bracketing or not bracketing. A 7-game best of 7 playoff for the Stanley Cup, best of 7 playoff for the NBA Finals. I'm only concerned about me. Where's my hotel? How do I get food? And can I be a fan or not sitting my butt in a chair? Those are my priorities. That's what I'm looking for. It's really, really crazy. And with all that being said, What about the NCAA football? We're going to talk to Vin here in a minute about preparing the minds of those NCAA athletes, as well as what is he going to be doing with the pros and the NFL. There's been a recent press release related to game plan and Vin and his group. But before we even get there, we got 5 Alabama football players that tested positive for the COVID virus. I think they went swimming. It's just my guess. I think they were in some kind of big pool with a floaty beverage cart around them, and they got the COVID. But that being said, that's not really the issue. The issue is who's making the decisions. Is it conference? SEC came right out and said, you can start practice next week. And yet the NCAA has been kind of like a church mouse, really silent about operational and systems addressment of these things. I think they will come out and say something, but I think they're waiting for things to just kind of flow. Because right now is the time when kids are on campus taking classes and working with their strength and conditioning coach. That's not happening. And it will, I'm sure it will, but there's also the concern by administrators who I've talked to on private, not to be named, conversations about what they think they can do. I'll tell you what I've said before. Let the science be your guide. And then from there, use your brain. Use your brain. And make sure it happens in a way that's appropriate for your community, because that's also a factor. Every community is different. State of Colorado, for example, doing quite well with our governor. Awesome stuff. Not exactly the same case in Alabama or other states. I don't mean to pick on Alabama, but we've got 5 ball players that tested positive that play for the University of Alabama. So let's make sure that we take a look at the community at large. So who decides? Well, let's take a shift to the other side of things. There's a wide receiver for the University of Texas who came out and said, look, I'm not going to play. I'm not going to report until I see that the United States has started to improve on race relations. Well, I give the kid a lot of credit for coming out. Brennan Eagles is his name, and that's wonderful. But from an education standpoint, how are you going to monitor that, Brendan? What things are you going to use to evaluate whether or not it's all right? It's okay. Now, I'm all for Colin Kaepernick, but he's an example that you should learn from. There are ways to be declarative, and Colin Kaepernick was very declarative, but you cannot sit back and be general like that and say, oh, in a global sense, I'm not doing anything as an athlete until the United States takes care of how we've been mishandled as a race, as a culture. I'm all for you there. I'm there for you. But let's make sure that you get the education and the guidance that you need to handle that in an appropriate way so that you are not the single sole, person who takes it on the brunt, that you take the brunt of it. It would be unfair to you and to your team, your teammates, and the school that you represent. So I hope you're going to get some great advice. So with that being said, without any further ado, set you up pretty good, didn't I, Vin?
Perfect. Tough to follow.
Exactly. A lot of things there. So Vin McCaffrey comes to us from the East Coast, wonderful South Carolina, right, Vin?
North
Carolina.
North.
Okay, North Carolina. I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. North Carolina, the founder of a wonderful program called Game Plan. In the last few years, as I've been watching what you've been doing, man, the last 18 months to 2 years has been a whirlwind for you. You have made some major steps. And I'm going to let you define the ins and outs of the NFL announcement of your collaboration with them on e-learning and the opportunities you present to rookies and those collegiate students that are coming into the league on the heels of the combine. But as I do that, let me finish my announcement and introduction of you by giving you this quote. Our Mindset Moment quote for this week comes to us from Wilma Rudolph, and it says, "Never underestimate the power of dreams and the influence of human spirit. We are all the same in this notion. The potential for greatness lives within each of us." And brother, you started something years ago with a dream, and here you are, bringing opportunity and greatness to others. Vin McCaffrey, welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So we met initially through the N4A community, right?
Correct.
The National Academic Advisors for Athletics. And be remiss, as you just gave the Wilma Rudolph quote, their big award is for the Wilma Rudolph Leadership Award. So it's funny, small world, good timing. Yeah.
Yeah. Methods to my madness, Ben.
I'm with you. Yeah.
And as we get into the show a little bit more, let me ask you to start off by just explaining how the relationship with the NFL got into your world, and what are you intending to do with them and for them?
Yeah. Thanks. We'll hopefully keep it for a very, very long time because it is wonderful to work with. I'll answer the second question first. They've been just phenomenal individuals to partner with. Our business works with athletic organizations who use our software for engagement of their athlete, education, development of their athlete. And the second is we'll work with certain partners who are brands, and those brands have a lesson to teach. And from that, they're very interested in aligning their brand to our platform so that it can help teach student athletes, professional athletes lessons. So it's kind of like that do good and do well model.
Yep.
So when you think about the NFL, they're both a subscriber to our software as the rookies, for example, and the players are going through game plan for rookie success programming, as well as mental health awareness, mental health literacy, and education. They're also a sponsor in that they've embraced the ideas associated with the work that we do with college athletic departments, where they're implementing the program right now, and they're teaching lessons associated with leadership, life skill, but also the technicalities associated with the transition and evaluation of the NFL for a prospective college football player. So it's a really unique partnership from that standpoint, where they're the only customer we have today that actually is both. They're a partner for us from the rookie success programming as a subscriber, just like a lot of athletic departments are. They're also a sponsor of ours in that they work to be able to provide their educational lessons to non-NFL players, those that are earlier in their journey in college football.
Before I go too far to the next question, I'm going to give you an opportunity. Ben, take a look at your browsers and quit any programs that aren't directly related to Zoom, so we make sure that your Wi-Fi signal, both audio and video, comes through. You do that, and it'll beef up the magic that we're creating here. And as he's doing that, guys out there, let's make sure that we have another little quote. I'm a big Sun Tzu, art of war kind of person as far as quotes are concerned. And one of those, it sets the stage for this segment about mindset. Getting that athlete focused in on, what are my resources? Where do I go to set a plan? How do I marry in my knowledge and my learning into that? Well, it's mastery of self. And so Lao Tzu, who wrote the book The Art of War, goes like this. Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. But mastering yourself is true power. I can't tell you how strong that quote resonates with me, given today, the stuff I started off before the show today, and the stuff that's circling us. And your remark, Ben, earlier about your 13-year-old who's going crazy. Well, he's a 13-year-old. He should. This is the formative years for him to be able, and others like him, to master that power of themselves, truly mastering yourself. We'll give him a couple more years for that. But there's some athletes, with the help of game plan, when you started this out, Ben, what did you initially formulate it to be, and where has it matured to?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for the question, and thanks for the kind words. If our son takes after his mom, we'll be in a good place. And those years are real. And if he takes after his dad as a knucklehead, I'm not sure how well that's going to turn out for him.
Well, we just had a knucklehead show up on Facebook. Paul Young, PY. I coached him in basketball, so that should resonate with you, PY. Hang on to that one. So go ahead, man. I didn't interrupt you.
All roads through the hard court. So we started associated with an athlete has great transferable skills. If we can connect an employer with an athlete, there's a real value to that. Help a student athlete, in particular a collegiate student athlete, get a job. And that was the initial business model. And that's a chicken or the egg dilemma, right? Do I go out and get the employers and the jobs? Do I go out and get the student athletes? We went out and got the jobs. It took me several years to start to realize that's a really, really, really challenging business model to scale. It's a two-sided marketplace. It's really hard. There's a lot of other great resources, both on a college campus, in the market, job boards. And you're competing for something that, from a transactional standpoint, really hard to kind of solve in a sense. And it's out of your control in many respects as well. So that was the initial start on Game Plan. And it's student athletes, professional athletes have these great transferable skills. What I would say is, like, several years in, this is the knucklehead part of me, we recognized that it wasn't necessarily this transactional issue that we should have been solving. We believe the athlete moves through a journey. We believe the athlete moves through different stages of development. And if we could help guide them through those stages of development, there's a real value to that. Not just to the student athlete, but also to the athletic department, the athletic organization that works closely with them. So from that point, that was, I don't know if it was a pivot as so as like the evolution of our business model.
You know, it's interesting how when you start something and people start to talk about it, how it takes a life of its own, and that organizations like NFL and hopefully, Major League Baseball and NBA and, on and on and on, they start to understand. And typically with what you're doing, as was told to me and has been for years from one of our colleagues, John Harris, that's how he started. It just kind of one begot the other. The one thing that's interesting is that the quality of the delivery can't change. To continue with that domino effect, you've got to maintain that quality. Well, adversity and changes in marketplace tend to test us a little bit. How are you handling this test we're in now? I mean, it's tough.
Yeah, I'm really fortunate. Our team's stellar. I think through this, I agree with you. I think adversity makes things challenging, but adversity can also pull you together and force new forms of communication. Open your eyes to opportunities that weren't there previously. All that's happening for us. So I think first, our team's really good. And we're really fortunate from that standpoint. And even through this time, that increased our team through this window. In fact, we hired a young man not long ago. We still haven't met in person. So that's an oddity, right? That COVID brings, where you have real jobs and real positions to fill. We haven't met in person. That's, who would ever thought you start a company, you're going to hire somebody who's really integral to your team, just never meet them in person, right? But at the same time, I think it's really as the market though prevails, we're an interesting place there too. As everyone shifted to a homebound, right, and folks were looking for ways to engage their athletes, we're in a unique position. As I was just sharing, we've essentially evolved away from just focusing in on the career transaction to very educational, developmental focused, and that's all mobile driven, right? So it's mobile first, and so from that standpoint, going into a pandemic, we were in a unique position to be able to support that, and we've seen our business grow through it.
So then on the job placement side, or not job placement, the career development, career management side of what Game Plan does, are you considered or have you been asked if you were a recruiter or not? Do you make the connection to finish up the cycle?
So I think, a couple of years ago when we were really, really dialed in trying to focus in on the employment and the direction of the athlete going to career, I think folks would do that. I think if you talk to our customers today, and probably for the better part of 3 or 4 years now, they would say that we're an educational company. We're a development company, and career is part of that. But if you kind of think about the journey of an athlete back from either your coaching days or playing days, athletes move to these states we're a guide through all those different stages, and career is one part of that, but it's just a part of it. It's not the whole thing. I think several years back, it was the whole thing in our mind. Now it's open. Our eyes have been open. So the youngest athlete in our platform is 14 years old, right? And then we have mentors well into their 80s in our platform. So when you think about it from that standpoint, career is still part of the discussion, but it's a subset of a broader discussion helping the athlete move through this journey.
So let me add to that then, the stair step then from that to the compliance side of things. And I mentioned that because of NCAA. You know, they've got, every athlete has to go through a compliance piece as it relates to drugs and alcohol, sexual harassment. And there's certain classes historically that the universities typically had in their bailiwick. You know, it was online, got from the NCAA perhaps, but there was an inconsistency of the message because there wasn't a really straight line to sources. Like CSU, for example, may have had a piece on a website that they got from the NCAA, but then the University of Iowa might have a whole different one that they may have gotten from development on campus. So you have kind of streamlined that a little bit and made consistency of the delivery and quality of the content. So is that part of the subscription an athlete or school has?
Yep. Yeah. So that's a big, what you just hit there is a very significant part of our value proposition. If you want to just kind of put it in a bucket of compliance-based education, that's a big part of what we do. And you hit on a few. I would also add sports wagering as a big part of that conversation. We're less than a month away from launching our name, image, and likeness curriculum designed to help athletes understand both the opportunities and implications of it. Now, whether you look at that from a marketing and a branding standpoint, or you look at it from a compliance standpoint, so when you think about compliance-based education, it's really significant. It's not, from an athletic standpoint, the student athlete's not necessarily thinking that as the most critical aspect, but it is. And so it's a key part of what we do, and I think it's a really big part of why customers subscribe to us. But it doesn't stop there. What we've found is we call it the vitamin and the prescription. So if you think about it from a prescription standpoint, you have to do it. You must have. Compliance education fits that. From a vitamin standpoint, think about what you and I have talked about, leadership and growth and athletic identity, career development. There's so many other topics that the athlete really can benefit from, but you have to get them started. And so oftentimes compliance is how to begin the conversation. We just don't end there. And in many respects, we don't want compliance to feel like a check the box scenario either. We think there's ways of delivering that is really in a check the box model. It's a turn off. We've all been through those. Yeah. And who really remembers it? Who really enjoys that? Moving to make it engaging. We're focused on move from participation as the primary indicator to comprehension. Right? We really want to measure your growth. If you're going to do that, do it the right way. And because the one piece that we've seen, even the last 12 years of running this business, it's gone like a J curve, the amount of time the student athletes demand upon. And that's not going to slow down, right? So you're only going to get a very limited amount of time with them, so you really need to make it optimized, right? You have to make it work. And we've been good with that. We've been really, our courses, I use the term course as part of our lingo, but it's a 6 to 8 minute mobile engagement. And the ability to deliver certain lessons and so forth. So it really fits. Yeah.
Then can you measure who's logged in and from what schools?
We can. So we're measuring. So the way our model works, think of us like everyone's been stuck at home. I don't know if you've subscribed to Netflix. We have at our house, and it's a lot. Think of Netflix for education meets athletics. Now that kind of gives you the mindset of where game plan can come. So if a given athletics department or professional league, they use that subscription to be able to manage original content from game plan, and those are the courses you just mentioned and a whole lot more. And as those courses are sent, we're not just measuring participation rates, meaning did the student through it. things like comprehension. We're measuring areas such as sentiment. So different elements associated with the educational experience that before were probably done in person, right? And really hard to kind of measure success and comprehension when you're doing an in-person workshop. And we're getting there with that. The nice part for us is because we have such high usage rates across our platform, we're starting now to get these great partners to come into the platform for partner-led education. So from our standpoint, we do have a really strong plan-led content, but our partner-led content is phenomenal. And we literally get the leading subject matter experts in the business to be able to discuss and educate athletes on their topics. So one that's really relevant right now, we'll be talking more about next week. So for example, Rise has been a partner for us with education to student athletes in athletics around social justice and race. They're flat out phenomenal people. And so we had initially 2 courses in the platform that were used all over the place last 12 months. That went so well, we now are going to have 12 courses going into the fall. So when you think about social justice, we're going to have a very comprehensive curriculum for college athletes and professional athletes to go through around social justice. So it's not just a discussion anymore. We're actually leading that through subject matter experts.
So
just an example.
So Ben, does that particular area with Rise, let's take Eagle, the kid from Texas, and put him as an example for us to case study on. Can we help him with that with Rise? Give him a measurable place to understand when things are changing so he doesn't detrimentally impact his own college career and perhaps his career beyond college?
I think, I don't know the young man. Texas is actually one of our customers, and they're phenomenal people. So I know they're figuring it out, and they'll work together on it. But it's a good example where educational content like ours comes from a recognized third party. Right? One of the challenges, in my opinion, is, and I've been doing this for 12 years. Think about when you and I met several years back, and the topic of that day. And the folks in the athletics department, for example, that were managing those discussions.
Yeah.
Well, think about where it is today. Social justice, name, image, and likeness, sports wagering, the amount of subject matter coming at that athletics department so fast, and the stakes are never here. And all of it, I think because you're in the seat of alliance or you're in the seat of student athlete development, you're viewed as an expert. You can't be an expert in all things, right? Like it's impossible to be an expert in all those subject areas, right? And yet that's what the athletic department is it's taken on that role. So from our standpoint, we think there's a huge value to be able to partner with Texas to be able to bring certain educational content in that the actual experts are going to be there. One part that I would tell you that is brand new, this may be the first time I've announced it publicly, is that we believe, though, the athlete still engages very much well. We think the virtual engagement and personalized engagement is really significant. So in July, Game Plan is launching an integrated virtual workshop model. So if you think about Game Plan, we not only will have and partner-led content, but as well as our own content, we're now going to have the ability to turn on our virtual network where third-party groups, for example, like Rise, will be able to use Game Plan to present in either a one-on-one or one-to-many setting. So it's going to be an integrated Zoom model with things like survey, polling, quiz questions. And the way our learning management system works is that those can be integrated as an assignment. So think of that as almost like a curriculum, right? So
yeah, that's nice.
So now we're going to continue to have the personal engagement that athletes really, they're centered on, right? They're used to being coached. That's a format they're familiar with. We're just going to be able to expand it because it's not going to be just limited to traditional coaching. It's going to be virtual-based coaching, which through COVID, people have warmed up a lot to. And so we believe we're really on to something from the standpoint, again, our own content, Now we'll have the virtual engagement.
So have you ever thought that you had good timing, Vin?
Well, what is it, the whole thing that, hard work and persistence, timing, and it kind of comes together, and we lucked out. We lucked out. I mean, there's no question about this, and from where we were kind of, but we were following, we believe we're following the lead. We lucked out in that we have some really great partners. The NFL, the NBA, college athletic departments. We'll be in over 200 college athletic departments by the end of June. So when you think about it from that standpoint, our insight covers everything. And we really do pride ourselves on listening. I mean, if you looked at where we started years ago trying to help a kid get a job to where we are today, it's vastly different. I think we saw this spring, there's roughly 21,000 undergraduates having over close to 14,000 courses completed monthly. So the engagement rate was through the roof. And we just really cherish those partnerships because they give us the feedback. Hey, this is something you need to get better at. And that's something we want to do. That's where the virtual network piece came in, right? Like that virtual engagement is really critical. You just can't do it there. It's got to be a blended model. And it's one that we feel really good about. So yeah, timing's everything, but it's not nearly as important, to be honest, as just the people that we've been really fortunate to work with.
Well, I'm all about that because good and great teams are made by adding the great people that are other resident experts, because it starts with a humble attitude of I don't know all the answers. I need to be surrounded by people that shore up my weaknesses. And in today's world of automating any number of things and actions, the least of which is going to be education. Education has been testing and pushing online education for a lot of years with a lot of resistance. Are you managing it? Or is it proctored properly? Now, and that doesn't necessarily apply to what you're doing, but for me, getting the athlete a way to relate to something that they're comfortable with, get their disposable thumbs moving, and it's less than 15 minutes, and I can get what I need and share, and I can make a choice of my own. Because many times, even the college athlete at Division I level and lower, they don't feel like they're in control. They're constantly being told what to do. They're constantly being enabled. And many times, as they get ready for the pros, if they're even quality enough to be the pros, they have to make their own decisions. And many times, that motivation and desire of what to do isn't transferred. They don't have a buddy to help them. So what you're doing is extremely important. So let me take a brief pause and share some things with people. That a client of mine is AvCare, and they make a germicidal hand lotion as well as a disinfectant. Well, they gave me a discount code to be able to share with my listeners and viewers. And it's 360PERF, 360 performance. So that's 360, the number, PERF. And you go to their website, avkare.com, and hook up on Shopify, and you'll get a discount. Now, interesting thing about this, it's not because I'm from Colorado, but this is a non-hazardous green footprint. So it's alcohol-free. So for those of us, especially athletes who are using lotions all the time, all you need is one little drop in your hand, and it's a lotion. And it literally feels like a lotion. And for the healthcare professionals that use this, they don't get dried and cracked out cuticles and bleeding underneath their vinyl gloves. It's tested. It's registered with the EPA. It attacks the COVID-19 virus, so it's got all the necessary what you shoulda, couldas. So especially for kids, got the carabiner, put it on your backpack or whatever, and go for it. 360 PERF. Now, as I say that, shamefully, I'm commercial. It benefits you because I want to get you guys discounts for that. But it lines up with what we were talking about with regards to support with the knowledge and the education. Now, Ben, I want to take that platform and shift into your partnershiping. Knowledge base is really great. When you hook up that virtual world with Rise through a Zoom platform, are you ever concerned about obviously you want as many as you can get, but in the tech world, too many means bandwidth starts to shrink. We get tech problems? What are your concerns, if any, for that?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. It's not meant, to be honest. The way our program's organized is we want to put the access and the controls in the hands of an athletics department, a professional league, a team. And so from that standpoint, although I do see the future where we're going to have big network, big tent type workshops, think more a team. Think more a scenario where how do you get real one-on-one engagement? So those are things that we're working through, and those obviously from a bandwidth standpoint we're good. I think in the big picture view in the next 12 months, will an athletics department be on game plan at one point in time with 400, 500 student athletes? Probably. Will just one or two be on there? Probably a lot more. If I had to guess. And so those are things that you can plan for and handle. To be honest, the benefits outweigh the negatives, right?
Yeah.
The student athletes are good. If they can start to do this, on their phone, on the fly, that gives them time back to their day. It is an act of God to try to schedule 500 student athletes together to go through a workshop. Even if whomever, drop in the most famous person in the world, would come in to deliver that. It's very, very difficult. It's impossible. So we think there's an alternative way to do it. It's not the only way to do it, but we think it's an innovative way to do it because we recognize that it has to start with the athlete, and we can get there and go beyond just, as I mentioned, participation towards real engagement, real measurement. We're in a good place.
I want to emphasize that it starts, and for me, it also ends with the athlete. In my work, I monitor the kind of things that they come in touch with, like game plan, often enough. So when you look at the history of what you've done, what are some of the areas of focus that are most frequently used off of game plan?
I think that's a great question. What we find is it'll be one specific thing that gets them started, and it tends to be that way. That's the primary use case. And in the last year or so, sports wagering has become a major conversation in college athletics. I think going into just in some of the earlier discussions that we've had with the customer base that we go for feedback on, our name, image, and likeness curriculum is going to be a very hot topic associated with student athletes. And not just the elite student athlete, all student athletes. We're approaching it from a broad stroke. So, just to give you a flavor, we have an entire curriculum on mental wellness going out to the NFL. It's a really intimate partnership. The PA, the NFL PA, and the NFL have come together to start to deliver mental wellness education to players, staff, coaches. It's cutting edge. I mean, it is phenomenal where it's going to be. It'll be available later this summer. The conferences and the college athletic departments that we're working with, mental wellness is a big deal. We have 4 courses that are available today. So that's going to expand. We've already said that. And what's interesting with mental wellness, because I do think it's one of those topics that it's not just a news story. I really believe it's something that we have to figure out more. The way we're approaching it is, do you understand the terminology? Do you understand the basic concepts? When we get in the same sheet of music, there's such a reluctancy from an athlete to talk to a mental wellness professional, even if that resource is there, because it's just an unknown. And so we want to break down those barriers. We want to make it so that just like sports performance, right, is an element that's a must-have. So is mental wellness. And meaning that you're on one side of that spectrum. It means that there's a broad spectrum. And it means that it can really help you enhance performance. It could help you when you're going through really challenging times. And I think most importantly, it's going to help you when you start to recognize another person going through challenging times, right, a teammate. And so we believe those are fundamental. And I don't think they're going anywhere. I don't think game, image, and likeness is going anywhere. Mental wellness, athletic identity. So it's never just, it starts with one area, but it never stays there. It tends to expand pretty well.
Well, and I have to echo that with you because my experience on the mental performance coaching side of things, that's a title that's been evolving from sports performance and sports psychology because it is all encompassing. My slogan to my athletes and organizations is anything or anybody that influences your ability to be your best, I need to know about. And that's well-being as well as mental performance and cognitive response to things. One of the things I'm interested in sharing with you, now that you mentioned it, was this week I've been talking a lot about tools and devices to use to, okay, you go to Game Plan. By the way, going to Game Plan, we go to wearegameplan.com, right?
That's right.
Okay, so go to wearegameplan.com and you get some knowledge, you get some of those things to notify yourself about what are the signs of mental well-being. Or maybe it's a brain trauma and you didn't notice it and you see it in a teammate and you picked it up on Game Plan. All right, that's great. Now what do I do with it? Who do I talk to? In your format, Ben, do you have referenceable points to send that athlete who recognizes it in themselves or a teammate? Here, go see this person.
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. Yes, to answer your question, broadly, yeah, we're going to direct them into where resources are. One of the flexible points that we build in the Game Plan, though, is we know every campus is different and unique. At every professional league is different, unique, and that's the value, in our opinion. So even though conceptually mental wellness is going to be similar across campuses conceptually, there are nuances in terms of, for example, where resources might be. So we want to make that available uniquely for those campuses on our platform. Those are it. And what we start to see is and it's not just for mental wellness, but it's a great example of how to tap into resources. So yeah, we have to make those unique and available for them.
I have administrators that watch the show every week, and if they're watching, in the profiling process that you would take them through as an initial client, are you asking them questions about resources they already have in place that could be put into the system? And do they have their own identity? They log in and they get their own game plan version? Kind of take me through that.
That's right. We fight status quo, much like a lot of businesses probably. There's bits and pieces associated with what we do, respectively, all over campus. I think what makes us different is we're able to bring in the experts from outside of campus to your doorstep. When we're first discussing game plan, that discovery conversation is really mission oriented. What's the focus of the app? So there might be something very topical, something bad may have happened that we're reacting to. It's okay. Is that where you want to be, or is that what you have to address? And so we're trying to understand really what the mission is. What's the culture of the athletics department? And from that standpoint, we better understand where we fit. Everything about game plan is designed to be flexible. So the content's the content, but the delivery of the content is designed uniquely for that athletics department, athletics organization, professionally. So from that perspective, we want to make sure we're taking the right notes. We want to better understand what's making that athletics department tick. It is truly a top-down. The most successful, and this is no, is the organizations who have leadership and said, no, this is how we're thinking about athlete development. And it's not just a buzz phrase, right? This is something that we're really the experience. And because if you do that well, and you know this already, as the things that really make the athletic department hum, it'll benefit, but the person that benefits the student athlete. And then when you realize those aren't mutually exclusive, you can really focus and do the right thing with a student athlete, and it actually benefit things like recruiting and fundraising and sponsorship. Those aren't separate entities. Sometimes they're that way. That's in my opinion some of the challenges that athletics departments face, is that operate in silos, right? The right hand rarely talks to the left hand, and those resources aren't shared very, very well, and communication tends to be poor. So if we can start to break down those walls, and we're not the only ones doing this. I think there's some other really innovative companies that are trying to help athletics departments to do that as well. But from our standpoint, that's part of the delivery, right? It's for the student athlete, and it's mission. It's a mission-driven approach. Yes. Which is for me, an old basketball guy. I mean, I got cut my senior year in college, right? Like you could argue game plan's the largest delivery mechanism for college athletes in off the court development in the country. And I got cut my senior year at Lehigh. And so I'm a huge subscriber that sports teaches lessons when you least expect it. And they lead when you least expect it too. If you look around right now and given our country where we are, you can't tell me that athletes aren't leading. Like, I think they've taken a phenomenal stance and a very balanced approach, because name a more diverse environment than what happens in the locker room, right? Male, female, whatever it might be. Name a more diverse environment that has to go out and win and succeed. They have to.
Yeah.
There's a common bond around humanity, character, and that's our mission, right? So if we can help that's player development, that's athlete development. But instead of the school of hard knocks, let's teach those lessons. Let's be upfront with the kids. Let's say, hey, if you do this the right way, here's the promised land. And I think if we can start to show that roadmap, it's really valuable. The kicker was it was never really a roadmap before. We're measuring the heck out of it now. And I think from our standpoint, there's a value of that. Come all the way back to why did we shift from career development? Because that was that much of this process. Really important, but it was just a piece of the process. The whole identity, the whole growth, the whole journey of the athlete is really where we're dialed in on. And the right athletics departments are thinking that way too, I think. And it's coming true now. You can just see it. Like, these times of adversity, you start impact recruiting, how that the alumni are looking. It might be in a bad place economically right now, but there's a lot of people looking and say, I'm really proud of my athletics department, and when the time is right, I'm going to support it, right? And that's how I think about it. And that's the mission of us, right? That's what we think this whole athletic experience can really drive.
Dean, when you've gone through the analytics and you've seen what's being drawn upon more often off of your offering, when we look at then the athlete in that analytic, how do we know the athlete in their engagement recognizes when they're successful from the information you've given them? It's one thing to talk to the administrators about, recruitment and fundraising and program success, but if we keep it right down to the athlete and we say to ourselves, gosh, how do we really know that kid is feeling like they got something out of this? It's like a restaurant, you clear the table, but you want to know, are they coming back? Will they come back?
Right. Did you enjoy the meal?
Yeah.
I think that's the question. I think it's the question. And I think it's a two-part question, because there's the mission of the athletics organization, and there's that mission, if it's done properly, has measurements associated with it. There's the athletic department level, but then the student athlete, when they're going into college, professional athlete making the transition to go play in the NBA, they're thinking what success is too. That's not always alignment, right? But if there were, then that pulls together, right? And so from our standpoint, we want to move from, hey, good job, you participated in a learning course, to guidance across the journey. We're in base school. One of the key aspects of the overall recruiting process, right? Just because you got a letter doesn't mean that's a translate scholarship. I'm using that as an example. Are you doing all the right things freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, so that when you make the transition like sport, which is always the most difficult one, you're more prepared for that? That's how we view it. So we want to measure the entire journey with milestones. We want to make sure that they're progressing against those milestones. If they're not, we want to be able to let them know. But ultimately, when we view it, this is our version, right? So there's the athletic organization, there's the student athlete, the pro athlete. But from our standpoint, it's, are they prepared for life after sport? Because if they do that, then they must have been doing the other things well, right? Because that's really hard. It's really hard. Not just getting a job. That's not just, hey, I'm not playing ball anymore and look at me, look at the gig I just got. That's mental endurance, and it's prepared me for the next phase of my life. Like that's what we're focused on. If they're taking that as a mindset, and we can measure that, that's really critical. I would say that we've got all that pegged, but we're way down the line, much more than we ever have been before. So that's how we view it. But I do believe it's multi-level question because it's the athlete and it's also the organization. And then us, for that matter, too.
Yeah, and you mentioned the multi-levels. And in organizations, from my experience, the coaches are integral and at varying degrees depending on the institution they work for. For example, with me, in the coaches I've dealt with, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, you get 15 minutes with the players. I'm going 15 minutes to talk about mental awareness, behavioral adjustments, dealing with the tough question to ask. I mean, the list goes on and on and on about the things that they're facing, because I deal with the reality from their street and then bring it to the coach. So I work through that. I usually get 30 after the 15-minute remark. But you know what I'm talking about. There's going to be resistance from the coaches about taking time away from the position needed for the player. So what are you saying to the coaches once you've got the administration kind of on board, maybe even signed up?
Yeah, right. It's happening right now. You know, we're bringing this NFL content, and it's unbelievable. We're about to in the Players Association content to all these college football programs. But if we don't put that in my opinion, that's our responsibility. We've got to put that into the benefit of the coaching staff. Their job is incredibly difficult, incredibly challenging. My dad coached. It's really, really hard. So we need to be able to frame it in a way that this, again, is not mutually exclusive. Just by taking these courses, for example, from the on-the-field development, it gives you this type of benefit. Recruiting, for example, gives these kids better perspective, very, very unique, objective views on what the NFL evaluation process is, as an example. So I think it's really critical when we were working with the athletics department, when we are working with an athletics department, student-athlete development, compliance, it's one thing. We start working with the coaching staffs who are held accountable to wins and losses. They're very, very focused on and they kind of know their way. It's the same offering. I think it's something that we've become bad at. We're not good at it, but we're getting better at it. That we'd be able to show them how it's solving their major problems. And it's hard. So, but we're showing that now. More and more, we're starting to work with player development reps. And to be honest, well, that's changing the industry. College basketball, they have director of player development on that staff now, and that looks and feels like a life skills coordinator in many respects. So from a coaching staff standpoint, they're embracing it, and so we look at that and say that's fantastic. So how can we help you as a football program enhance your player development experiences? Same thing that we're doing in professional football, professional basketball, baseball, soccer. You know, that's the critical part too. That's true player development because they're employees at that point in time, and we know that. So we've really got to maximize it. But even at the collegiate level, it's critical. And what we see the benefit is recruiting, really, really big impact around recruiting. But once the player's there, giving them that perspective of how to handle themselves on and off the court, just teaching those lessons and not assuming they're just going to learn is a big, big deal.
Yeah, I have to relate to that very strongly because I was included as a stop on the recruiting cycle. When players and families visited campus, my mental conditioning class was part of the recruiting stop for moms and dads, and I would take them through exemplars of what we gave the kids. And at Colorado State University, with the help of Jim McElwain, who's now up in wonderful Michigan, at Central Michigan, he allowed me to move from 15 minutes to an actual class, Vin. And we had great success with that. But that being said, it's now gone electronic and technical. So, you know, with the advent of Zoom and all these different things, we've got so many different choices we can make in wrapping our brain around sending the message to the player in an engaging way that they connect it to their interactions with their teammates. So are you getting any feedback about players or coaches and players commenting about, hey, he or she started at this point with game plan, and now we're into this, maybe they did it over the summer, and now we're into the season, and we see, look how much more attentive they are and how much more astute they are in their playbook.
Yeah, we are. So to answer your question, we are. But I'll give you just a great example of what happened just not long ago. The rookies for the Kansas City Royals were coming in, and the Royals are a phenomenal organization, very leadership driven, just by the book. I mean, they're as good as they get. So I come out, I'm getting to spend some time and listen to the rookies because they're preparing to go to spring training, and 3 guys come over. And they come over and introduce myself, and I'm the fly on the wall. I'm not presenting. I'm that guy. They announced who I was when I was sitting up. And 2 of them were from Memphis. One was maybe from Cincinnati, and they were in our platform. And then they made the transition Royals, and God bless, right? They were a little nervous because they're rookies and there's a lot going on. And then one kid said, hey, I was so glad when I saw game plan. Like, that was finally something I understood what to do. And, don't underestimate that there's a lot coming at them, and from that standpoint, just having something that's consistent, particularly when they go through a transition, is a really big deal. So what you're just describing is what I think about. When a kid's up and they're at level plane, it's like the boat, right? They're flying. But they got to get up there first, right, before they get there. And it's those stages of transition they move through that they can trip up, that they go through some really difficult times. High school to college is really hard, especially if you're if you're a full sport athlete, right? What's that look like? You're going from college to professional athletics. They might think it's smooth. It's not. It's hard. And so if we can be a consistent platform, I think one of the reasons why the NFL has invested in game plan from a sponsorship standpoint is if we're working with thousands of college football players, we now have the ability to see them through the transition even to the NFL. Albeit it's a very small few that obviously will ever make that. But we're going to be able to help them with that transition. We'll be working with them freshman year in college versus seeing them for the first time post-combine. That's a big deal. So to answer your question, all those different stages of development, measuring it for sure, but just being there with them, shoulder to shoulder, is a really big deal.
Well, having a turnkey resource that they get comfortable with, that they can go to and get answers that work, that fit, and that they have control over. In the last few minutes of the show, Ben, let me make sure I emphasize again, if I haven't before, my thanks to you in participating with me on 360 Performance. I enjoy it. It's not going to be the last time we're going to talk, because you're going to continue to grow and continue to do great things. But I want to make sure that we send a message, as you've already done with the good work that Game Plan has done, that it's wearegameplan.com. Check that out. Take a look at it. And if you knew about it and you haven't been checking it out, well, shame on you. Go check it out, because you're getting ready for your season. You're coming into the off season for some of you, but many of you are trying to figure out, what can I do? What should I do? And maybe this will be a place for you to go find some of those answers, like Brennan Eagles with the University of Texas. Maybe he can find some answers. As Ben, you mentioned, Texas is one of your client contacts. I hope that the administration and coaches there know about Brendan and are giving him some support in getting the answers he needs so that he can continue to produce as a good citizen and as a good teammate and player, trying to understand what is socially just and how do I know if my world is changing to make me feel good about it so I can continue to be a productive citizen. Then I'm going to ask you in a minute my last question for you, but I'm going to make sure that everybody knows that next week we're going to be talking with Kendra Friedman. Kendra is the CEO of a company in Oregon, in Portland, Oregon, who has world-class female soccer players on her board. Miss Bird, for those of you who know soccer, she's on the board. But we're going to talk about CBD and the productive nature of what CBD can do for you as an athlete and how it's changing, but most importantly, talk to Kendra about being a they in a business that is kind of in flux, and yet in our own state, we're looking and hearing about how things are going to change with the new legislation about marijuana products across the country. So, in closing, Vin, what would you like to say to our audience about one key thing you want them to take away from the game plan?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Lowell. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it. The one key thing is game plan has invested heavily to not only provide the type of content that you might need from game plan in terms of science and student athlete development, but ability to work with partners who are the experts and critical. So we can bring all this into one place, and now adding the ability for virtual engagement, we believe it's a tool that will help when you start thinking about player development, student athlete engagement, player engagement. It's a tool there to help you reach those goals that you're setting out. Contact, because the folks that are in this role are really mission-driven individuals, good people, and if nothing else, the game plan might not be for you, but it would be wonderful to connect and just appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Van. Have a great day. Everybody, stick with us for next week on every Friday when we broadcast 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. Have a great day today, everybody. I'm still with you, Vin, but we're off.
Okay.
Thanks, man. Great show, great points. It's just outlined really well. Thank you so much. Best,
you made it easy. Thank you.
Best to you and the family. And I'm going to send you some stuff that I'd like you to think about going forward. I designed a human assessment tool for desires and motivation.
I saw that.
And that could fit into some of the things you do with all those programs. But it gives you a profile of a player that